In the ancient city of Lacedaemon, the arrival of a newborn wasn't met with joyful hugs or tender whispers. Instead, it prompted a stark inquiry: is this form fit for purpose? A group of seasoned leaders would scrutinize the infant closely. If they spotted any hint of vulnerability, a bent limb, a feeble wail, or the slightest indication of infirmity, the child was carried off to the rugged hills under cover of darkness, never to return. This wasn't a hidden shame or a denied act, it was enshrined in their code. Yet this harsh judgment didn't begin at the moment of birth. It traced back even further, to the careful choices about who could bring forth life. In unions orchestrated not by affection but by inherited traits, turning intimate bonds into calculated experiments. Lacedaemon didn't nurture households in the usual sense. It engineered fighters. To forge that reality, it seized command over something deeply intimate, the creation of life itself. We hear plenty about these warriors today, their epic clashes, their unyielding resolve, the infamous training regime that molded young lads into instruments of war starting at age 7. But there's an aspect of their tale that's often overlooked, the foundational elements that enabled all the rest. To grasp how Lacedaemon crafted the ultimate soldier, you must confront an unsettling truth: they viewed people as mere resources to be refined. And astonishingly, this approach sustained them for generations until it ultimately unraveled. This delve into their world probes beyond the typical retellings. If you're drawn to histories that peel back the layers of societal mechanisms, revealing their raw underbelly rather than just celebrating the surface, show your support with a thumbs up and join the channel. Let's dive right in from the start. Picture the infant barely 2 days into existence. His mother hasn't bestowed a name upon him yet, for in Lacedaemon, such honors were withheld until survival was assured. To comprehend the reasoning, consider a fact seldom highlighted in dramatic portrayals: they were a scarce people. At their zenith, perhaps only 8,000 true citizens existed, known as the equals, standing against roughly 150 Zalozan subjugated laborers, many tracing their roots to vanquished neighbors who still harbored memories of liberty. Crunch the numbers. Each grown warrior bore the burden of overseeing nearly 20 souls who seethed with resentment. Uprisings weren't mere threats, they were inevitable, fierce, and life-threatening. Lacedaemon couldn't afford frailty among its ranks. Every individual had to pull their weight without fail, and that evaluation commenced from the very first breath. The newborn is presented to the assembly of elders, comprising 28 veterans past their 60th year, alongside the city's dual rulers. These weren't healers with gentle hands. They were battle-hardened survivors, men who'd spilled blood, witnessed comrades fall, and understood intimately what physique could withstand the chaos of combat. The assessment was swift but thorough. They checked for sturdy legs, a robust frame, an uncurved back, a properly shaped torso. One elder might hoist the child toward the sunlight, rotating him carefully, pressing on his tiny chest to elicit a cry and gauge its vigor. At times, the flaw was glaring, a deformed arm or evident sickness. Other instances, it was more elusive, a whimper that lacked force, pallid skin suggesting underlying issues, or some intangible quality that experience alone could detect. If approved, the infant was returned to his mother's care, at least temporarily. If deemed unfit, he was swaddled snugly, and a guardian escorted him that evening to the flanks of Mount Shadow Peak. There lay a spot the ancients termed the abandonment grounds: jagged stones, howling gusts, biting chill. The escort deposited the bundle and retreated solo into the night. Such practices of leaving infants to the elements weren't unique to Lacedaemon. They occurred in places like the bustling harbors of Attica or the grand forums of the Eternal City. But here's the distinction elsewhere: it was a personal choice, often driven by poverty or hardship, kept within the family. In Lacedaemon, it was official decree, compulsory and methodical. It wasn't seen as sorrowful, it was standard procedure. Yet this served merely as the initial sieve. For those who cleared it, the oversight only intensified. The Lacedaemonian regime didn't commence its grip at birth, it extended backward, dictating pairings, unions, and conceptions. Every phase was engineered meticulously. In Lacedaemon, marriage wasn't a matter of personal choice. Officials appraised youths much like farmers selecting prime stock for breeding, and in essence, that's what they were doing. For the male's height, wide build, lineage of proven combatants, no hereditary ailments. For the female's ample frame for bearing, resilience in exertion, sound ancestry, attractiveness played a role, but not for vanity's sake, it signaled vitality. Even dentition indicated nourished youth, flawless complexion hinted at disease resistance, balanced features suggested smooth growth. The overseers sought not harmony between souls, but the likelihood of resilient progeny. Once selected, the pair was notified, not invited to opine. Romance held no sway, it was extraneous. Some did form bonds despite the setup. Human hearts have a way of defying structures. But such warmth was incidental, not intended. The aim was output, pure and simple. The system delved even deeper. Suppose a man was deemed exceptional, a decorated fighter with superior build, but his spouse proved barren. The authorities permitted, nay, urged him to sire offspring with another's partner. This wasn't betrayal, it was communal obligation. Theodore, the chronicler from antiquity, recounts particular instances. An elder husband with a youthful, fertile wife might invite a promising young soldier to fulfill the duty. The child born was a boon to both lineages. The original husband felt no envy, only honor in bolstering the city's defenses. As for the woman's thoughts, the annals remain silent on that front. This wasn't liberation of desires or casual liaisons. It was deliberate trait selection, akin to what we'd later term guided heredity, though the phrase emerged ons after, and it yielded results. Accounts speak of Lacedaemonians towering over foes, their stamina legendary, their forms sculpted as if by divine hands. The Roman concept of paternal dominion, where the father reigned supreme over his domain, didn't apply here identically, because in Lacedaemon, one's very being wasn't the father's to command, nor even one's own, it was the property of the collective. This was codified, woven into customs and laws. Males dwelled in shared quarters from youth till their 30s. Even post-wedding around age 20, they didn't cohabit with spouses. Matrimony was for propagation, not domesticity. Husbands would slip from dorms after dusk, share fleeting moments, and vanish before first light. Many fathers glimpsed their offspring only during allotted times. The close, knit kin unit was absent. Allegiance was to the polity alone. Thus, cycle after cycle, Lacedaemon birthed exceptionally hardy youth who, at 7, were wrenched from scant familial ties and thrust into a forge far more severe. Let's envision Lucas at 7, having spent his early days amid maternal care, sibling games, and home-cooked sustenance. But on this fateful dawn, that chapter closes. His mother attires him wordlessly, her eyes dry. Tears would brand her as deficient, and deficiency invited scorn. She guides him to the communal square, where dozens of peers assemble, faces etched with suppressed dread. An instructor strides forth, imposing, marked by scars from countless skirmishes. He seizes Lucas's wrist without greeting, yanking him into the fold. The mother lingers stoic. She won't welcome him home for over 2 decades, assuming he endures. For the forging program wasn't mere education, it was an apparatus to shatter juveniles and reconstruct them as lethal entities. And the dismantling began immediately. The inaugural doctrine was blunt east breeds vulnerability. Lucas and his cohorts fashioned their own bedding from river rushes, harvested bare-handed, no tools permitted. Their garb, a solitary coarse cloak, enduring scorching heats and icy blasts alike. Worst of all, perpetual hunger gnawed at them. Portions were deliberately scant, a calibrated undernourishment. But this wasn't aimless torment, it was tactical. The lads were tasked with supplementing via cunning acquisition. In Lacedaemon, pilfering wasn't sin, It was curriculum, sharpening stealth, endurance, audacity. A fighter unable to infiltrate hostile lines for provisions was deemed useless, so they prowled their own streets like phantoms, foraging remnants. Detection, however, brought savage reprisal, lashes without mercy, not for the act but for the blunder of exposure. The offense was ineptitude, not immorality. The takeaway seared deep triumph, excuses all, defeat merits none. In warfare, capture spelled doom for self and comrades. The program ensured that wisdom was etched into skin. This transcended soldier preparation. It crafted hunters, detached, acute, strategic, unbound by conventional ethics. In their realm, ethics blurred into a single query: victory or failure. They mastered deception, evasion, vulnerability detection, unquestioning compliance. They were kin, bound by suffering, competition, terror. Undernourishment and larceny were mere preludes. Harsher trials awaited. The frame adjusts swiftly to deprivation, chill, strikes. But the program's core battle raged within the psyche. Lacedaemon required not just brawn, but intellects sharpened to edges, essences void of individualism, devoted solely to the whole. Having subdued the physical, mentors assaulted the spirit. Their arsenal reticence. Our term for concise speech derives from their land, terseness born of necessity. Youths learned words as instruments, not frivolities. Idle chatter, silly comments, needless queries invited penalty. Mentors flung provocations demanding crisp retorts. Faltering earned not verbal rebuke, but physical correction, perhaps a sharp nip on the digit, a memorable prompt for forethought. Quietude became shield, utterances must land with precision. Yet the cruelest barbs often stemmed from peers. Seniors dominated juniors as despots, overseers, enforcers. Oppressors rolled into one. At repasts, they unleashed verbal assaults. Who's the mightiest defender here? Assess the ruler's recent expedition. Eyes acquisition virtuous. No correct responses existed, only pitfalls. A slip, delay, improper inflection. All summoned mockery or fists. Degradation was overt, relentless, engineered. This wasn't haphazard harassment, it was systemic savagery, a framework to temper psyches resilient to scrutiny or turmoil. Competition fueled assent, belligerence garnered esteem. Depend on none. Unmask flaws in others. Conceal yours. These were edicts. Such incessant brutality culminated in one of the most appalling ceremonies, the rite at the shrine of the huntress divine. Sacred offerings were arrayed on her pedestal. The youth's objective seemed straightforward: dash in, grab them, flee. But access demanded traversing a corridor of scourges. Thongs whistled, rending hide with each stride. It tested not agility or quickness, but endurance of torment without fracture. The essence lay in withstanding the flaying, mute, unflinching, tearless, mask unbroken. To vocalize anguish was self-disgrace. Theodore chronicled lads perishing at the sight, faces alight with defiance as vitality ebbed into soil, expiring content in their validation. This marked initiation, a sanguine immersion to expel dread and tenderness. But when a culture incinerates every frailty, what remnants of compassion persist? What essence survives after reshaping into armament? If this dissection of antiquity's grim frameworks resonates, think about following for more insights into how collectives molded and fractured human existences. What Lacedaemon forged was contradictory, figures of supreme might, yet void inwardly, combatants of impeccable order, yet twisted principles. In their ethos, slaying might dignify, empathy could ruin. They embodied ideal tools of destruction. Now, the regime sought evidence of their capacity for its bleakest demands. That validation arrived via a shadowy practice few uttered aloud: the night hunters. It wasn't standard soldiery, no ranked engagements. It was covert elimination, a terror engine to silence domestic threats. To fathom it, recognize Lacedaemon's fixation dominion. An elite minority governed vast throngs of bondsmen, who vastly outnumbered them. Dread of insurgency haunted daily. Their counter-premeditated dread. Annually, prime-forging alumni, the pinnacle of strength, guile, ruthlessness, ventured rural with dagger and meager rations. Conceal by light, strike by shadow, dispatch remorselessly. Targets the bondsman, specifically the audacious, proficient, those elevating above masses. These youths became reapers culling prominent shoots. This constituted ultimate assessment, final metamorphosis. Assassinating defenseless in obscurity wasn't warfare, it was mental reconfiguration, a right to affirm pity's total obliteration. They slew not from fury or safeguard but per directive. To legitimize, officials enacted a macabre formality yearly war declaration against bondsmen. As foes, their demise wasn't homicide, merely duty. A tidy pretense converting atrocity to patriotism. By blade's crimson tint, the Lacedaemonian finalized evolution. Born states ward, molded by rigor, emotionless, proven an unhesitant kill. But what entity emerged? Guardian of order or apex hunter? Likely dual. That's Lacedaemon's disquiet efficacy amid horror. For ages, the apparatus functioned seamlessly. Dominance over realms, unrivaled fighters, fabled control. But the undoing flaw was intrinsic. Initial toxin population dwindlement. Ruthless trait curation, discarding imperfect young. Shunning flaws narrowed diversity. Each battlefield casualty a catastrophe, lost investment in nurture and heritage. Rivals replenished forces, Lacedaemons struggled replacing paragons. Elite purity morphed to lethal fragility. They self-eroded numerically, second venom rigidity. Forging yielded obedient executors, not visionaries. Warriors flawless in adherence, inept in adaptation. Inquiry. As tactics advanced, their stasis persisted. Ideal troops in an era craving strategists. Ultimate strike, prosperity's curse. Vanquishing rivals flooded coffers with foreign riches. Affluence. Once banned eroded austerity. Egalitarian ethos decayed internally. Then the clash at Shadowford in 371 BCE. Frederick, the innovative commander from a rival state, demolished mythic unbeatability. Rather than diluting lines, he massed one flank 50 ranks thick, slamming into Lacedaemon's command corps. Novelty overwhelmed inflexibility. A monarch perished amid fray, forces decimated. Supremacy shattered. By imperial times, Lacedaemon devolved to spectacle, a relic where visitors observed mockeries of ancient rites, vestiges of faded glory. Ultimately, their life-crafting saga transcends chronicle, it's cautionary. A order fixated on flawlessness, forfeiting humanity for it. They birthed ideal combatants, ensuring self-annihilation. The forge of legends devoured itself, bequeathing debris and echoes of grandeur erected on brutality, felled by its own impeccability. To flesh this out further, let's linger on an imagined scene from the Elder's chamber during an inspection. The room is dim, lit by flickering torches, the air thick with the scent of olive oil and aged wood. Elder Harlan, a grizzled veteran with a limp from an old spear wound, leans forward as the infant is placed on a stone slab. Turn him, Marcus. He grunts to his fellow counselor. Marcus, whose hands bear the coluses of decades wielding shields, gently rotates the child. Legs seem straight, Marcus mutters. But listen to that cry. It's thin, like a reed in the wind. Harlan presses the tiny chest, eliciting a wail. The kings, seated at the head, nod solemnly. One king, Leopold, speaks. We've no room for the fragile. The bondsmen watch for any crack in our armor. The decision falls swiftly, no. As the guardian carries the bundle away, Harlan sighs, another for the peaks. May the gods judge us kindly. Now, consider the matchmaking process in more detail. In a sun-drenched courtyard, officials gather young adults. A scribe reads from a scroll, Ethan, son of Victor, your build is prime, your bloodline untainted. Ethan stands tall, expression neutral. Paired with Clara, daughter of Reginald, her frame promises sturdy hairs. Clara, nearby, meets his gaze briefly, no spark, just acceptance. Later, in private, Ethan confides to a comrade, it's not what I dreamed, but for the city, I'll do it. His friend replies, dreams are for the weak. This ensures our line endures. Expanding on the wife, sharing, Theodore notes a case where an aging warrior, Theodore himself, perhaps drawing from tales, describes Benjamin allowing young warrior Daniel to visit his home. Benjamin says to his wife Eliza, this is for our legacy. Daniel's valor will strengthen what we build. Eliza, voice steady, responds. If it serves Lacedaemon, so be it. Months later, the child arrives, and Benjamin holds him proudly. A fine addition to our ranks. Delve into Lucas's first night in the forging. The barracks are Spartan, bare floors, drafts seeping through cracks. An instructor bellows, strip your softness. Beds from rushes you gather tomorrow. Lucas huddles with others, whispering, I'm scared. A peer hisses, quiet, or they'll hear. Come dawn, they march to the river, hands tearing at sharp stems, bloodied but uncomplaining. Instructor Theodore watches. Pain is your teacher now. At a theft episode. Lucas, stomach rumbling, sneaks into a market stall at midnight. Heart pounding, he grabs a loaf. But a shadow moves, caught. Back at barracks, lashes rain down. Not for taking. The flogger growls, for clumsiness. Lucas bites his lip, learning. In mental drills, during a meal, senior boy Oliver taunts Lucas, why fight bondsmen? Lucas pauses then, to preserve order. Wrong blows follow. Think faster. Later, he sharpens. Because weakness invites chaos. At the shrine rite, Lucas lines up. Whips crack as he runs. Skin splits, but he grits teeth, seizing the offering. Emerging bloodied, instructor nods. You've begun to prove yourself. For the night hunters envision Lucas selected. Dagger in hand, he stalks a field where a bondsman, strong and vocal, toils. Hiding till night, Lucas strikes swiftly. Returning, he reports, done. No remorse, only duty fulfilled. From a bondsman's view, Jacob, a helot laborer, whispers to kin, they come in shadows, picking the best of us. Stay low. His fear fuels quiet resistance, but the system crushes it. On women, Lacedaemonian females trained rigorously too, running, wrestling for robust offspring. A seen mother Lydia instructs daughter Sophia, strength isn't just for men. Bear warriors and you're immortal. Comparisons unlike Attica's democratic families, or the eternal city's paternal rule, Lacedaemon subordinated all to state, psychological tall many warriors, post-battle stared blankly, emotions cauterized. Theodore writes of one who, after slaying, questioned nothing. Battle details at Shadowford, Frederick's phalanx innovation, deep columns, overwhelms. Lacedaemonians charge traditionally, but the mass breaks them. King falls, crying, hold the line. Chaos ensues, survivors flee. Reflections, this warns against extremes. Pursuit of perfection erodes the human core, leading to collapse. Societies thrive on balance, not machined uniformity. Wealth's corrosion, gold buys luxuries, barracks empty as men seek comfort. Discipline phrase. In ruins today, one ponders, was the cost worth the glory? The whispers say no.